Thank you so much for being with us today, Steve.
I am glad to be here.
All right. Well, we're really interested to know, when did you start writing? What was the first thing you ever wrote? Do you remember?
Well, I think probably the first thing I ever wrote was that little story, The Haircut, or some version of that a very, very long time ago. I recreated that from memory and just put that together. And then about 15 or 20 years ago, a story idea came to me about a little mouse named Timmy, who was, out in the field, and we were dealing with predators and things like that for his little mouse family. But that never really got off the ground. When I really started writing a little bit more seriously was about 10 years ago or so, after I started telling stories to kids in Sunday school. The curriculum that we had tended to be more entertainment oriented than teaching the Bible. And I wanted the kids to actually, hear and read and know the Bible stories. So I began writing them, and quite often I use a puppet named Stanley, who's not here today, but well, he lives at the church. So
Okay.
so most of the many of the stories that I wrote are with Stanley. So we're doing a lot of interacting and things like that. But the story that I submitted to you guys a couple of years ago, called Jairus' Daughter, was one of the ones where I was beginning to experiment with a new point of view, and you referred to it a couple of times. I was a big fan of Adventures in Odyssey, and especially of the imagination station, where they would go back into the story, and then the kids would actually be there interacting with the characters. And one of the things that I thought would be really cool would be to just do that very same thing, have the story told from the point of view of some kid that actually was or could have been in that story. So that's when I got started doing that, and I've been doing that a little bit more seriously over the last couple of years, and there I am.
Right. Okay, so that was a question I was going to ask you. How did you come up with that style of voiceover writing to get inside the kid's head? And I think you just answered that. It sounds like the Adventures in Odyssey and the Imagination Station kind of spurred that on.
Well, that, and I was, there's another outfit called Christian Storytelling. I forget exactly what the name of the organization is, but I was very interested in storytelling, and the guy talked about the way that he would come up with a way to tell a story, and he would sit and read and reread and reread the Bible story a number of times, and then try to imagine himself inside the story. And I came up with a term that's probably not that original, but inhabiting the scripture. Trying to picture yourself inside what the story might be like. So that's how I got to that thing, and I just find it a very enlightening way to view the scripture, because it's they were real people
Right.
doing real things,
Right.
and you sort of want to try and put yourself in there. When you study the Bible, you say, what does it say? What does it mean? What does it mean to me? Well, in order to get the first two, you sort of have to put yourself into the story.
Right. Well, and I love that you do that because mentioned the first story that you sent to us, or at least for our writing contest back in 2010, and it actually won first place in that contest. And I know that one of the things that the judges really liked was exactly that you put yourself into the story, but you do it as from the child's point of view, a child that was actually living the story. And that is so cool because it brings the Bible to life for kids in such a way that they're not used to hearing those stories. They're used to hearing the stories just read like we all remember them from the Bible story books or whatever.
And
But
our eyes tend to glaze over a little bit.
yes, absolutely. But this brings them to life, and they're real, and the kids can relate to them. They can relate to what those kids are thinking and feeling, and really put themselves in that situation. And then I think that it impacts their lives more, and they remember them later on because they lived it kind of as they read the story.
That is indeed what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
the kids, I know that when I sit there with a room full of kindergartners or first graders or even fifth and sixth graders, and they are quiet, I mean quiet for the entire 15 or 20 minutes that I'm reading the story, it's got their attention. They're paying attention. They're locked in, and that really means a lot to me.
right. Well, I think you've done well by doing that because I know, when my kids read your stories when you submit them, and I know other people have said this, but my daughter has said, Mom, the whole Bible should be written like this, and I think for a kid, it's hard for them to read the Bible the way it's written and understand what it might have been like to be there and the senses that are there and the smells and the sights and you bring those things to life for them so that they do feel like they're there. So anyway, I want to kind of talk about, because now you have your first ebook on sale at Amazon, and it's called The Kid Inside Bible Stories, which kind of reflects the style of the story really well because they are written from the kids inside the story perspective. And it's doing pretty well on Amazon. It's got some good reviews up there.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there more books planned?
Yes, I actually, when I mentioned the stories with Stanley a few minutes ago, I think I'm going to work up a book of those stories called Conversations with Stanley or something, where we're discussing Bible stories or we try to live inside them together, and that way I can we sort of tell the story and we're there with another character at the same time. I'm sure a lot of other people are trying to tell some stories for Sunday school, and quite often the curriculum that you're given requires a half a dozen people and a whole bunch of props. And what I've tried to do is sort of boil things down so it's just me and a puppet. And I am the world's worst ventriloquist. But me and my little buddy Stanley, we get along really well, and the stories work out very well as well.
Right.
I also have another set of stories with the two characters from the Winter Water Hazard story that I sent to you. That's Susie and Johnny. They're a product of me trying to reimagine some characters that were in a series of stories broadcast over the Radio Kids Bible Club, which was a Christian radio program for kids between the 40s and the 60s. My father-in-law was the musical director for the show, and Dr. Brumfeld, J.C. Brumfeld, wrote this whole series of stories about Susie and Johnny and how they were real kids trying to be real Christians and the adventures that they would have because of that. And so what I've tried to do is I've taken those characters and sort of updated them, where the Susie is the granddaughter of the original Susie and the spitting image, and she just happens to meet this new kid at her church named Johnny and lead him to the Lord. And then they have all these adventures with their friend Andrea, called the After School Adventure Bible Club or something like that. I forget exactly what it is, but I've got a whole bunch of stories written with those characters in mind, and they're also Bible-related stories, but they sort of live through them in modern times.
Great.
And then I've got more kid inside stories as well. So
wow, how exciting! Some great things to look forward to from Steve Mathisen. So now I can maybe guess, but what is your favorite subject to write about?
The Bible. God gave us the Bible in pretty much in story form. And when Jesus was teaching, he was teaching in story form. So there's almost an unlimited number of stories to use and to weave other stories in and around in the Bible. And I don't think I'll ever run out of material. So yeah, that's what I write about mostly.
Awesome. And I'm just curious, do you have any formal writing education, or are you a self-taught writer? And if you are self-taught, or even if you have formal training, are there any courses or books or groups or anything? What helps you improve your writing?
Well, I did attend and completed the apprentice program for the Christian Writers Guild.
Okay.
And that was like a 2-year correspondence course thing with a mentor program where they had established writers and editors that would, go. You had a series of assignments, and they would critique them and help you work through your program. I also recommend highly, based on other people's experience, the Institute of Children's Literature. That's a really good one, which I didn't want to pay for 2 courses because I'm just not that wealthy, but that's another one that comes highly recommended by many other people that I know.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. So any other final words about writing or projects that you have coming up?
Well, like I said a little bit earlier, I am writing a story called Story of Asaph, and where Asaph is a young, strong, burly fisherman on the Sea of Galilee who gets knocked in the back by the boom on his sailboat, on his fishing boat. The storms come up very, very quickly on the Sea of Galilee, and he gets caught and gets hit square in the back, ends up in the water, and doesn't come up right away. His brothers, who are on the other boats really close by, come and pull him up out of the water and pull him up on the shore, only to find out that he's paralyzed.
Oh.
And so he can't move his arms and legs. I mean, they didn't have social programs back then, so he was the only support for his family. So everybody's, trying to figure out what to do. Somebody comes and runs to tell him that Jesus is in town. And so what we ended up with is the story of the paralytic who's lowered through the ceiling that Jesus heals. And this story is told from the point of view of a younger cousin of Asaph called Gideon. And so I'm in the process of doing that now.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait. I can't wait. So hopefully that will be in the volume 2 of the Kid Inside Bible Stories.
You bet.
All right. So we're gonna link to the Kid Inside Bible Stories Volume 1 that people can get at Amazon. It's an ebook, so they can get it on their Kindle or Kindle app. And we'll provide the link below this interview to that. And we'll also provide a link to Steve's blog. You have an active blog that you update, so we'll provide that link as well, that people can go and see what's up with you and your new projects coming out. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today about your writing career and your new book.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right.